I would say there's probably in places in Papua where humans have never stepped foot. So up on the high mountains, because first of all, for Papuan people, those high elevations, first of all, it's cold. And traditionally Papuans don't have clothes. So they going into those higher elevations was, and also with climate change, even in my lifetime, my dad talked about frequently in some of the high mountain passes when he would be walking between villages, coming across frost or, snow, ice pellets, much more common. And then today it's quite, it's less and less common. So you also see, sweet potatoes growing higher than they used to grow. But I say that because, so previously Papuans didn't go to these higher elevations. Also, like I can speak firsthand from the Yali, there were beliefs that the higher elevations where the spirits lived. We didn't go above the tree line because that's where the spirits were, and we believed in the lakes, the little lakes and rivers, there were spirits, so you wouldn't go up there. And so those traditional belief systems meant those areas, people didn't go there. And maybe occasionally people strayed to those places, but even if people have been there, they haven't spent time there. Or so to me, that thylacine, there's possibly new species that are waiting to be discovered, and there's very little known about those habitats. But there's very little, really. There's not a lot known about biodiversity of New Guinea as a whole, but especially Ana Papua, and even more so these like remote, and not just these remote highlands, but there's also remote places like in the Mombramo River Basin where there probably is some human presence, but very minimal. With probably nomadic hunter-gatherers who pass through, but maybe for years they don't go back there. So there's potentially all sorts of discoveries waiting to happen in Papua. But
a couple of things. So do you think those stories about spirits are put in place to protect certain areas, or why do you think, like
from a psychological perspective?
So I don't think those people created those stories to protect those areas. I think they're just mysterious. Like when you go into the high mountains, especially as you start, the trees start to change and it becomes, the heavy moss in the trees, and it's always fog, and it's often quiet, very, very quiet. And I think I don't know if it's the density of the air or the moisture, and you can,
moss is a good isolator.
Yeah, and you just, little, like, for example, there's a frog in the high mountains that sounds like a little bell. It's just ding, ding, and it just sort of like, goes through the forest, and it's very mysterious. Like, so it's just, I can remember as a boy, like, it was mysterious. There's a bird in those high mountains, and I don't even know today what it is, but it's a mimic, so it can copy human sounds, or it copies any sounds. But I remember being in the forest with my friend and hearing a baby crying, and we're like, "There's no babies here!" Like, and got scared because we thought it was like a spirit, and we ran back to like where my friend's father Yali was, and we're like, "There's a spirit there." Like, we heard like a baby crying in the forest.
Yeah.
And he laughed at us. He goes, "No, that's a bird." That bird copies, like, he goes, sometimes it'll sound like people talking, or sometimes it even mimics like someone cutting wood. You'll think you hear someone chopping wood, but it's the bird. Okay. So I think that habitat is just naturally mysterious. Then you get even up in those higher elevations, and it's not like anywhere else in Papua, and there's this forbidding environment with ice and snow and cold, and and we were warned, if you go up there, like, never mind the spirits, if you get trapped there overnight, you'll die because the exposure to the cold. And